Meditation 2. Of the nature of man's mind, and that 'tis easier proved to be than our body. By yesterday's meditation I am cast into so great doubts that I shall never forget them, and yet I know not how to answer them. But being plunged on a sudden into a deep gulf, I am so amazed that I can neither touch the bottom nor swim at the top. Nevertheless, I will endeavor once more, and try the way I set on yesterday, by removing from me whatever is in the least doubtful, as if I had certainly discovered it to be altogether false, and will proceed till I find out some certainty, or if nothing else, yet at least this certainty, that there is nothing sure. Archimedes required but a point which was firm and immovable, that he might move the whole earth. So in the perfect undertaking great things may be expected, if I can discover but the least thing that is true and indisputable. Wherefore I suppose all things I see are false, and believe that nothing of those things are really existent, which my deceitful memory represents to me. 'Tis evident I have no senses, that a body, figure, extension, motion, place, etc., are mere fictions. What thing, therefore, is there that is true? Perhaps only this, that there is nothing certain. But how know I that there is nothing distinct from all these things which I have now reckoned, of which I have no reason to doubt? Is there no God, or whatever other name I may call him, who has put these thoughts into me? Yet why should I think this, when I myself perhaps am the author of them? Upon which account, therefore, must not I be something? 'Tis but just now that I denied that I had any senses or any body. Hold a while. Am I so tied to a body and senses that I cannot exist without them? But I have persuaded myself that there is nothing in the world, no heaven, no earth, no souls, no bodies, and then why not that I myself am not? Yet surely if I could persuade myself anything, I was. But there is, I know not what sort of deceiver, very powerful and very crafty, who always strives to deceive me. Without doubt, therefore, I am, if he can deceive me. And let him deceive me as much as he can, yet he can never make me not to be, whilst I think that I am. Wherefore I may lay this down as a principle, that whenever this sentence, I am, I exist, is spoken or thought of by me, 'tis necessarily true. But I do not yet fully understand who I am that now necessarily exist, and I must hereafter take care lest I foolishly mistake some other thing for myself, and by that means be deceived in that thought, which I defend as the most certain and evident of all. Wherefore I will again recollect what I believed myself to be heretofore, before I had set upon these meditations, from which notion I will withdraw whatever may be disproved by the forementioned reasons, that in the end that only may remain which is true and indisputable. What, therefore, have I heretofore thought myself? A man. But what is a man? Shall I answer a rational animal? By no means, because afterwards it may be asked what an animal is, and what rational is, and so from one question I may fall into greater difficulties. Neither at present have I so much time as to spend it about such niceties. But I shall rather here consider what heretofore represented itself to my thoughts freely and naturally whenever I set myself to understand what I myself was. And the first thing I find representing itself is that I have face, hands, arms, and this whole frame of parts which is seen in my body, and which I call my body. The next thing represented to me was that I was nourished, could walk, had senses, and could think, which functions I attributed to my soul. Yet what this soul of mine was, I did not fully conceive, or else supposed it a small thing like wind or fire or air, infused through my stronger parts. As to my body, truly I doubted not, but that I rightly understood its nature, which, if I should endeavor to describe as I conceive it, I should thus explain, viz. By a body I mean, whatever is capable of shape or can be contained in a place, and so fills a space that it excludes all other bodies out of the same, that which may be touched, seen, heard, tasted, or smelt, and that which is capable of various motions and modifications, not from itself, but from any other thing moving it, for I judged it against, or rather above, the nature of a body to move itself, or perceive, or think, but rather admired that I should find these operations in certain bodies. But how now, since I suppose a certain powerful, and, if it be lawful to call him so, evil deluder, who useth all his endeavors to deceive me in all things, can I affirm that I have any of those things which I have now said belong to the nature of a body? Hold, let me consider. Let me think, let me reflect. I can find no answer, and I am weary with repeating the same things over again, in vain. But which of these faculties did I attribute to my soul, my nutritive or motive faculty, yet now seeing I have no body, these also are mere delusions? Was it my sensitive faculty? But this also cannot be performed without a body. And I have seemed to perceive many things in my sleep, of which I afterwards understood myself not to be sensible. Was it my cogitative faculty? Here I have discovered it. 'Tis my thought. This alone cannot be separated from me. I am. I exist. 'Tis true, but for what time am I? Why, I am, as long as I think. For it may be that when I cease from thinking, I may cease from being. Now I admit of nothing but what is necessarily true. In short, therefore, I am only a thinking thing, that is to say, a mind, or a soul, or understanding, or reason, words which formerly I understood not. I am a real thing, and really exist. But what sort of thing? I have just now said it. A thinking thing. But am I nothing besides? I will consider. I am not that structure of parts which is called a man's body, neither am I any sort of thin air infused into those parts, nor a wind, nor fire, nor vapor, nor breath, nor whatever I myself can feign, for all these things I have supposed not to be. Yet my position stands firm. Nevertheless, I am something. Yet perhaps it so falls out that these very things which I supposed not to exist, because to me unknown, are in reality nothing different from that very self which I know. I cannot tell. I dispute it not now. I can only give my opinion of those things whereof I have some knowledge. I am sure that I exist. I ask who I am, whom I thus know. Certainly, the knowledge of me, precisely taken, depends not on those things whose existence I am yet ignorant of, and therefore not on any other things that I can feign by my imagination. And this very word, feign, puts me in mind of my error, for I should feign, indeed, if I should imagine myself anything. For to imagine is nothing else but to think upon the shape or image of a corporeal thing. But now I certainly know that I am. And I know also that 'tis possible that all these images, and generally whatever belongs to the nature of a body, are nothing but deluding dreams. Which things considered, I should be no less foolish in saying, I will imagine that I may more thoroughly understand what I am, than if I should say, at present I am awake and perceive something true, but because it appears not evidently enough, I shall endeavor to sleep, that in a dream I may perceive it more evidently and truly. Wherefore I know that nothing I can comprehend by my imagination can belong to the notion I have of myself, and that I must carefully withdraw my mind from those things that it may more distinctly perceive its own nature. Let me ask, therefore, what I am. A thinking thing. But what is that? That is a thing, doubting, understanding, affirming, denying, willing, nilling, imagining also, and sensitive. These truly are not a few properties, if they all belong to me. And why should they not belong to me? For am not I the very same who at present doubt almost of all things, yet understand something? Which thing only I affirm to be true, I deny all other things. I am willing to know more. I would not be deceived. I imagine many things unwillingly, and consider many things as coming to me by my senses. Which of all these faculties is it which is not as true as that I exist, though I should sleep, or my Creator should as much as in him lay strive to deceive me? Which of them is it that is distinct from my thought? Which of them is it that can be separated from me? For that I am the same, that doubt, understand, and will is so evident that I know not how to explain it more manifestly, and that I also am the same that imagine, for though perhaps, as I have supposed, no thing that can be imagined is true, yet the imaginative power itself is really existent, and makes up a part of my thought. And last of all, that I am the same that am sensitive, or perceive corporeal things as by my senses, yet that I now see light, hear a noise, feel heat. These things are false, for I suppose myself asleep, but I know that I see, hear, and am heated. That cannot be false. And this it is that in me is properly called sense, and this strictly taken is the same with thought. By these considerations I begin a little better to understand myself, what I am. But yet it seems, and I cannot but think that corporeal things, whose images are formed in my thought, and which by my senses I perceive, are much more distinctly known than that confused notion of myself which imagination cannot afford me. And yet 'tis strange that things doubtful, unknown, distinct from me, should be apprehended more clearly by me than a thing that is true, than a thing that is known, or than I myself. But the reason is that my mind loves to wander, and suffers not itself to be bounded within the strict limits of truth. Let it therefore wander, and once more let me give it the free reins, that hereafter, being conveniently curbed, it may suffer itself to be more easily governed. Let me consider those things which of all things I formerly conceived most evident. That is to say, bodies which we touch, which we see, not bodies in general, for those general conceptions are usually confused, but some one body in particular. Let us choose, for example, this piece of beeswax. It was lately taken from the comb. It has not yet lost all the taste of the honey. It retains something of the smell of the flowers from whence 'twas gathered. Its color, shape, and bigness are manifest. 'Tis hard, 'tis cold, 'tis easily felt, and if you will knock it with your finger, 'twill make a noise. In fine, it hath all things requisite to the most perfect notion of a body. But behold, whilst I am speaking, 'tis put to the fire. Its taste is purged away, the smell is vanished, the color is changed, the shape is altered, its bulk is increased, it's become soft. 'Tis hot, it can scarce be felt, and now, though you strike it, it makes no noise. Does it yet continue the same wax? Surely it does. This all confess. No one denies it. No one doubts it. What therefore was there in it that was so evidently known? Surely none of those things which I perceived by my senses. For what I smelt, tasted, have seen, felt, or heard, are all vanished, and yet the wax remains. Perhaps 'twas this only that I now think on, viz., that the wax itself was not that taste of honey, that smell of flowers, that whiteness, that shape, or that sound, but it was a body, which a while before appeared to me so and so modified, but now otherwise. But what is it strictly that I thus imagine? Let me consider, and having rejected whatever belongs not to the wax, let me see what will remain. viz. This only, a thing extended, flexible, and mutable. But what is this flexible and mutable? Is it that I imagine that this wax from being round may be made square, or from being square can be made triangular? No, this is not it, for I conceive it capable of innumerable such changes, and yet I cannot by my imagination run over these innumerables. Wherefore this notion of its mutability proceeds not from my imagination. What then is extended? Is not its extension also unknown? For when it melts 'tis greater, when it boils 'tis greater, and yet greater when the heat is increased. And I should not rightly judge of this wax, did I not think it capable of more various extensions than I can imagine. It remains, therefore, for me only to confess that I cannot imagine what this wax is, but that I perceive with my mind what it is. I speak of this particular wax, for of wax in general the notion is more clear. But what wax is this that I only conceive by my mind? 'Tis the same which I see, which I touch, which I imagine, and in fine the same which at first I judged it to be. But this is to be noted, that the perception thereof is not sight, the touch, or the imagination thereof, neither was it ever so, though at first it seemed so. But the perception thereof is the inspection or beholding of the mind only, which may be either imperfect and confused, as formerly it was, or clear and distinct, as now it is. The more or the less I consider the composition of the wax. In the interim, I cannot but admire how prone my mind is to err. For though I revolve these things with myself silently and without speaking, yet am I entangled in mere words, and am almost deceived by the usual way of expression. For we commonly say that we see the wax itself if it be present, and not that we judge it present by its color or shape. From whence I should immediately thus conclude, therefore the wax is known by the sight of the eye, and not by the inspection of the mind only. Thus I should have concluded, had not I by chance looked out of my window and seen men passing by in the street, which men I as usually say that I see, as I do now, that I see this wax, and yet I see nothing but their hair and garments, which perhaps may cover only artificial machines and movements, but I judge them to be men, so that what I thought I only saw with my eyes I comprehend by my judicative faculty, which is my soul. But it becomes not one who desires to be wiser than the vulgar to draw matter of doubt from those ways of expression which the vulgar have invented. Wherefore, let us proceed and consider whether I perceived more perfectly and evidently what the wax was when I first looked on it and believed that I knew it by my outward senses, or at least by my common sense, as they call it, that is to say, by my imagination, or whether at present I better understand it, after I have more diligently inquired both what it is and how it may be known. Surely it would be a foolish thing to make it a matter of doubt to know which of these parts are true. What was there in my first perception that was distinct? What was there that seemed not incident to every other animal? But now when I distinguish the wax from its outward adherents, and consider it as if it were naked, with its coverings pulled off, then I cannot but really perceive it with my mind, though yet perhaps my judgment may err. But what shall I now say as to my mind or myself? For as yet I admit nothing as belonging to me but a mind. Why, shall I say, should not I, who seem to perceive this wax so distinctly, know myself not only more truly and more certainly, but more distinctly and evidently? For if I judge that this wax exists because I see this wax, surely it will be much more evident that I myself exist because I see this wax. For it may be that this that I see is not really wax. Also, it may be that I have no eyes wherewith to see anything. But it cannot be when I see, or, which is the same thing, when I think that I see, that I who think should not exist. The same thing will follow if I judge that this wax exists because I touch, or imagine it, etc., and what has been said of wax may be applied to all other outward things. Moreover, If the notion of wax seems more distinct after it is made known to me, not only by my sight or touch, but by more and other causes, how much the more distinctly must I confess myself known unto myself, seeing that all sort of reasoning which furthers me in the perception of wax, or any other body, does also increase the proofs of the nature of my mind. But there are so many more things in the very mind itself, by which the notion of it may be made more distinct, that those things which drawn from body conduce to its knowledge are scarce to be mentioned. And now behold, of my own accord am I come to the place I would be in. For seeing I have now discovered that bodies themselves are not properly perceived by our senses or imagination, but only by our understanding, and are not therefore perceived because they are felt or seen, but because they are understood, it plainly appears to me that nothing can possibly be perceived by me easier or more evidently than my mind. But because I cannot so soon shake off the acquaintance of my former opinion, I am willing to stop here, that this my new knowledge may be better fixed in my memory the longer I meditate thereon. End of Meditation 2.